Welcome to another episode of FTB Infinity Skyblock with Arturio and Emerys. So today I've got a lot of things to talk about. I made some good progress. Okay, and the key to it is to talk about a couple of machines. We'll talk about this in a minute. But first we need to talk about the Magma Crucible and the Fluid Transposer. The Magma Crucible is a fairly important machine, and it's not terribly difficult to make. And it's kind of the key to making capacitors and a few other things. In order to be able to make this, you need to be able to make INVAR, so you have to have at least a smeltery. You have to have a basic machine frame, so that means you need a laser assembly table. And the leadstone energy cells are pretty easy, just glass, redstone, and lead, so that's not really a problem. And the redstone reception coils, redstone and gold, very, very simple. And then nether brick, which by now you should be able to make nether brick from lava and redstone. Now on its own, a magma crucible, you put items in here and they get melted down and they become fluid. On its own, it's not going to do you any good. You also need a fluid transposer. And a fluid transposer there we go. A fluid transposer is about the same level of difficulty. You need copper gears, a redstone reception coil, glass, a bucket, and another basic machine frame. So when you're making these, just go ahead and set up to make two, because you're going to need one for each of these. Now, the trick to these is you need to set them up so that they're next to each other, and you need to configure them in a particular way. The output here is an orange. And so the side that they share, you have to configure the output of the Magma Crucible on that same side. And then on the Fluid Transposer, the side that they share has to be the input. Okay? Now, do I have any redstone? I do have redstone, and I may have... I think that's what I need. And let me see if I have any buckets on me. I've got a couple of buckets on me. Okay, so here's how this works. With redstone, I think you need 10 of them. These will melt. Okay, and because they're linked, the fluid is immediately going over to the fluid transposer. Each piece of redstone will give you 1/10 of a bucket of destabilized redstone. So you put your bucket in there, you fill it, and now you've got a bucket of destabilized redstone that you can use for things. Let me run upstairs real quick and get some glowstone. Now glowstone's a little different. It only takes 4 glowstone to make a bucket. And as you can see, I've got some destabilized redstone there, so let's just take this and we'll put that away because we don't need it at the moment. Yeah, my thing is almost out of the blocks of coal, and should automatically, when this runs out, we're using charcoal, which it'll run about 10 times. It'll go through that charcoal about 10 times faster, so I'm going to have to watch that carefully. All right, so anyway, Magma Crucible, you put the glowstone in, and this becomes energized glowstone, which if you get a bucket of it and dump it on the ground, it actually floats up in the air. Okay, so, and then you get a bucket of energized glowstone. The bucket's upside down because it floats, and otherwise it would float out of the bucket. So what is so important about destabilized redstone and energized glowstone? Well, the QED, most of these things are not terribly difficult to make. Like the resonant machine frame, you make it in a similar way to the basic one, and we've talked about that before. You need the laser table. It's just going to take a very, very long time. The under-infused obsidian, very simple. Oh, that was not what I meant to do. Let's try this again. Eye of Ender, redstone chipset, everything is pretty easy except these double layer capacitors. And the double layer capacitors require basic capacitors. Let's look at those. And those require signalum nuggets. Lapis electron tubes, thermionic generator, easy to do, lapis and redstone. But the signalum, you have to have signalum blend, and where you get that is from some form of powdered copper and silver and destabilized redstone. That gives you the signalum blend. Throw that in a furnace of some type, and it will smelt into signalum ingots. So again, that is where you're going to get the signalum for your basic capacitor, your step 1 capacitor. So you need that for a QED. Now for a double layer capacitor, you need energetic alloy. And where you get energetic alloy is from an alloy smelter. Okay? To make an alloy smelter, you need a basic capacitor. Again, this machine chassis, you need basic capacitors, but you also need aluminum ingots. Okay? Machine frame, you're going to need a bunch of these at some point. So that's 3 I've counted so far of the basic ones, and then 1 resonant one. So there we go. Aluminum blend is silver and tin and energized glowstone will make you the aluminum blend, which again you throw into a smelter and you get the aluminum ingots. So that's where you're going to get the aluminum for this, and that will allow you to make the alloy smelter. Most of it's not too difficult. Crushed obsidian. The electric furnaces are not too hard, just a regular furnace, which you'll have to make with compressed cobble, iron plates. You will need 3 of these, but one of them you have to further turn into an induction furnace, which you'll have to make the advanced machine frame. And this can be a bit of a pain. You're going to have to make carbon plates, and to get carbon plates, you have to get coal powder, which means you're going to have to throw coal in your macerator. 4 coal powder combined like that will give you the raw carbon fiber. And the raw carbon fiber combined, 2 of them, will give you the raw carbon mesh. And in a compressor, you'll get these carbon plates. Oh, no. So, yeah, like I said, this is kind of complicated. There's a lot of steps here. So besides the carbon plates, you also need the advanced alloy. You'll need steel plates. There's a couple of different ways to make it. Just kind of, we'll look at that in a minute. So to make that advanced alloy, you have to have a mixed metal ingot in a compressor. And to make a mixed metal ingot, you need tin plate, bronze plate, and iron plate. And you just combine them in a crafting table and you'll get 2 of those per. So this is relatively expensive because each one of these is 2 ingots. So this is 18 ingots of metal. Actually, this is an alloy, so I think that's more than that. So that's 18 ingots of metal. You get 2 back, so it's 9 ingots per each one of these advanced alloys. And then the steel plate or the refined iron plate, you make the refined iron plate by taking steel and putting it in your metal former. Okay? So you can do that way, or you can do this steel plate, which takes a metal press and steel ingots. Okay? Last thing, iron bars, no problem. Basic capacitors, we've already talked about. The electric furnace, these electronic circuits you need to make, they're not terribly difficult. Rubber and copper cable. So once you do that, you have an alloy smelter. Now you can make energetic alloy. and that was part of the QED, right? Is that what we needed that for? Yeah, the double layer capacitors, you need the energetic alloy, and blazing electron tubes, which is blazing powder and redstone in a thermionic generator, and basic capacitors. That will get you the QED. Now the problem is the QED on its own does nothing. It has to have power. And so if you use the other tab here, it'll take you to the information thing. And this is a little confusing. It tells you that you need ender flux, and in order to make it, you have to make these, and I don't understand why it calls them, you must place ender crystal pillars. Okay, if you go search for that, there is nothing in NEI. And that was the problem I was having, was I'm like, okay, well, it says you must place ender crystal pillars. And that is not what you need. I don't know why it calls them that. What you need is ender flux crystals, okay? These are not horrible to make. Here it'll tell you what you have to do to them. These actually convert RF into ender flux, so they have to be powered. And they don't do it very efficiently, so the more of them you have, the faster it'll run. But anyway, so you need more ender-infused obsidian, which is just obsidian around an ender pearl, a diamond-etched computational matrix, which is more ender-infused obsidian, burnt quartz, which is just quartz blocks thrown in a furnace of some type in diamond. This is a little expensive, but at this point you should hopefully have diamonds. And I just made 4 of these. And so that's what's going on here. This is the QED. These are the ender flux crystals. And it's basically just a crafting table that allows you to do specialized crafting, such as the culinary generator. If you want to make the level 2 culinary generator, where you take 8 of them and combine them with a transfer node energy, this has to be done in a QED. And I tried to do this in an earlier episode, and I had all of the ingredients, but I didn't have a QED. So now I have a QED, and so now I have this little beauty. Okay, so this here is producing as much power as the 8 culinary generators I had, and actually more than that, because each culinary generator, you know what, I don't remember what it did. I think each culinary generator produced 32 RF a tick, and so there was 8 of them. So what does that work out to? 256, I think. So this is producing almost twice as much power as those 8 culinary generators combined. The tier 3 one requires a hyper energy one, which 4 of those and a bedrockium ingot, which doesn't look like it's anything that you're gonna, this MOX nuclear fuel, uranium, plutonium, and that gives you bedrockium. Okay, maybe someday. Not particularly close. And I imagine if you do this, it would be the same kind of thing where, 8 of these would produce just shy of 500 times 8 would be just shy of 4,000 RF a tick if you just have 8 of these. And combining them, I think is even, it's going to be a little bit more than that. So. And the nice thing is it's not using as much of the fuel of the Beef Wellington. I do want to talk about one other thing with the Beef Wellington here. Something that I notice is occasionally I'll get stuff here. Like I think I had spinach seeds in here. And what happens is, like, this is dough. And as long as there's dough in here, or there's the firm tofu here, it's fine. But if there's any time that these 2 barrels are full, or I'm sorry, are empty, and there's anything in either the spinach or the mushrooms, well, spinach and mushrooms in a crafting table is a valid recipe. It produces seeds. So then what happens is you get a spinach or a mushroom seed right there, and then that plugs this transfer node and it doesn't work anymore. And the same thing down here, like with wheat, if you take the bowl out of there, then wheat on its own is a valid recipe for wheat seeds, so you'll get seeds here. So you want to make sure that you don't ever take that stuff out of here. Like if you take the pot out of here, you'll get fresh water. And what does fresh water turn into on its own? I think it just turns into fresh water. So you'll get a freshwater bucket here, and it'll stop working. So that's just something to be aware of. When you load these, just kind of be careful, make sure that you don't ever run out of dough or the firm tofu. Then it should be fine. So I know this wasn't a really exciting episode. I did all of this off camera, and but I think I've done a pretty good job of explaining how all this works, because it was difficult to figure out, and to do all of the clicking and making this and making that and everything, it was 2 or 3 hours worth of work to make all of that stuff. So just be aware that when you get to some point, if you're kind of stuck in the tech tree at that point, that it's kind of a process. So I've got some destabilized redstone left, and I've got some lumium left, and then my signalum here. I made a bunch, just because I'm going to need those capacitors at some point. So a lot of the Ender IO stuff makes use of those capacitors, and there's even a tier 3 one. So yeah, I made extra energetic alloy too. And also, it might not be a bad idea to make more than one macerator, or to start making some of these upgrades, because the macerator is incredibly slow. I suppose I do have spare pulverizers. I made them. I could check those. They probably make a different kind of dust, but I think the recipes will accept them anyway. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for now. I think that'll be today's episode. Let me see if I have a place for this energetic alloy. No, that's aluminum brass. There we go. That's where energetic alloy is going to go. I may have to go and put a couple more compacting drawers in here, but we'll worry about that later. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, it would be awesome if you could leave a like on it. And if you haven't subscribed, it would be even better if you could subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them on YouTube, and I will respond to them as soon as I can. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. This is Arturio Emerys signing out.